Just found out that all three of us are parents to twins.
Yeah.
Any other twin parents?
So you must always say, yeah. I will now call to order the March 16th, 2023 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take a roll call?
Commissioner Kerdeman. Commissioner Fuller. Commissioner Inman.
Here.
Commissioner McGlinton. Commissioner Ponce. Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Commissioner Morris is absent, and Commissioner Zimmerman is also absent. We have quorum.
Zach, you're probably coming over this.
It isn't working. So. Is that any better? No? Okay.
The commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning items not on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will now consider the approval of minutes from our last meeting on February 23rd.
16.
February
16.
16th, sorry. May I have please have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Commissioner Kerdeman moves to approve the minutes and Commissioner Fuller seconds. Are there any corrections? So, seeing that there is none, I will now open the public hearing for historic, oh, sorry. Oh, all in favor of approving the minutes as recorded, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, I will open the public hearing for historic review case number HIS 2303. Would the recorder please read the hearing procedures statement into the record?
Sorry.
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 23-03 for property located at 460 Leslie Street Northeast, or Southeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.065, General Guidelines for Historic Contributing Structures. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, appeals to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts that any commissioner would like to declare at this time? Seeing there are none, may we please have the staff presentation? Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report as attachments and all public testimony to the public record. Turn it off. Ready to start now. Okay, I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments and all public testimony into the record. So this property is located on Leslie Street Southeast and is a contributing resource to our Gay Hill Bushes Pasture Park National Register Historic District. Here is a street view of the primary facade. I'm going to share a little bit about the history of the site. So the Bishop House is a Cape Cod residence constructed in 1938 by Jasper Bishop. The house remained in the Bishop family after Jasper's death in 1941, stayed in the family through 1988. Jasper has an interesting history. He worked as a member of the State Highway Department beginning in 1913, and he had become the chief maintenance engineer in 1932. He actually died fairly young. He died at the age of 52, and in November 1941, all flags on highway maintenance shops throughout the state were flown at half-mast until after his funeral. You can see a Sanborn Fire Insurance map there. This resource, again, is contributing to Salem's Gay Hill Bushes Pasture Park and has a high level of integrity. So this is a site plan which gives an overview of the proposal that you're going to be reviewing tonight. The applicant is requesting approval to replace a total of 8 windows on the second story of this residence. These do not function properly. Some have been heated shut and the sash counterweights have been cut. The windows are all single pane and also let the cold and heat in. The applicant is also proposing to replace the shingle siding just on the dormers on the front facade of the Bishop House. A little bit more specifics about the proposal on the north facade, which is the front. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing windows with custom design wood double hung windows designed by Staten Wood Windows. And the cedar shaped shingles will be replaced with in-kind cedar shaped shingles to match the existing. And on the secondary facades, the applicant is proposing, I'm just going to take one facade at a time. On the west facade, there are 3 double hung windows on this facade that they're proposing to replace with 3 paintable fiberglass, double paned Marvin Elevate double hung windows within the existing openings. On the south, which is the rear, there are 2 existing windows on the second story, which the applicant is proposing to replace with the same type of window, the Marvin Elevate paintable fiberglass product. And then on the east facade, you can just see the interior view here. Same kind of thing, replacing the existing window with a paintable fiberglass. Now I'm going to go through the applicable guidelines, which are in Salem Revised Code SRC 230065.
So the first guideline relating to use, the applicant's not proposing to alter the original use as a single-family residence. And the proposed siding and window replacement on the primary facade is an in-kind replacement, matching material and design of the original double hung windows. And the siding on the dormers is also going to be in kind, thereby meeting SRC 230065 C and D. The proposed new double hung replacement windows, while a change in material is proposed for the windows on the secondary facades, the fenestration pattern and window openings will be retained. And this will help improve both functionality and energy efficiency while ensuring that the overall character defining features of the openings are retained. The proposed new double hung fiberglass windows are paintable and match the design of the original windows. And their location on the side and rear facades of the resource minimizes any adverse visual impacts due to the change in material. Therefore, staff recommends that as Salem Revised Code 230065 has been met for the proposal, specifically guidelines F and G. The guidelines H relating to structural deficiencies and excavation and regrading are not applicable to the evaluation of this proposal. You have received testimony in support, public comment from Mark Histand, and also an email from John Christensen from the SCAN Parks and Gardens Historic Committee, which should be on your desk and was emailed to you, I believe, today as well. City departments, building and safety indicated that building permits for the window and siding replacement are not required for single family dwelling unless the structure is closer than 3 feet or other structure. And the planning division, public works and fire department did not have any concerns with the proposal. Staff recommends that the Historic Landmarks Commission approve the proposal based upon the applicant's submittal and the findings presented in the staff report. That concludes the staff.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I have some questions.
Commissioner Strauss has a question.
Thanks. Just one clarifying question. I see the picture in the email attachment, the bottom of the window is not matching the design, but that's just an example, is that right? It's going to be matching on the secondary facades?
Yeah, that's correct. That's just an example from and the application is clarifying.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for staff?
Question for the applicant.
We're gonna have them testify in just a second. So if we don't have any other questions for staff, then I will now call for the applicant's testimony. Please state your name and address for the record. Order of business address. Representing the applicant.
Rich Bontrager with. My name is Rich Bontrager. I'm with Kaufman Home Maintenance and provide services for Cheryl Randall and her residents. And our address is 5797 State Street South, Salem, Oregon 97317. Cheryl proposes to just replace the windows that are not functioning up on the second level, and we would want to keep the same look, make it more efficient and provide better energy efficiency and allow her to be able to use the windows properly. Some windows do not open, so that would take care of this, but we're going to keep the same look. Answer to your question about the bottom, the samples just didn't have that, the grid work on the bottom of that, but she will keep the same pattern that is on the existing windows.
I have a question.
Commissioner Strauss.
Could you talk a little bit more about the condition of the existing windows and why they're not fixable?
They've been painted over shut quite often, or a few different times. The strands that hold the counterweights of the bunk makes the windows function, they have been cut. So it's pretty extensive to be able to pull those spaces off and try to restore those. And if we did, they still would be a single pane window, so it would not allow the efficiencies that a dual pane would give her. So she gets a lot of heat and cold from the summer and winters, and so it's just not very efficient.
Can I ask a follow-up? Have you considered storm windows as a way to work on the energy efficiency question?
We haven't. That would not really allow her to use the windows as intended if they had just a storm window on the outside. Plus, it would be hard for her to put those on and off, being it's a second level.
Commissioner Thomas, did you have a question for the applicant?
I did. So has the first floor been replaced previously?
No, not at this time. They have not at this point.
So they're original.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergman?
Are you planning on keeping the frames intact, the wood frames intact, and just replacing the window insert?
The two that face the street, we are planning to just do the sash, so that would be taking those apart and then using the new sashes, which would keep the original frame. That's our understanding that the Historic Society would prefer that. The only way we would change it if there was some structural issue or some kind of drywall that would require us to change that. But other than that, the windows are planning to be re-existing frames.
Question. And then for dry rot, is there potential that you could find some as you're dismantling?
It's always potential, but the windows seem to be, the framing of the house and stuff seems to be in very good shape. So if we have to do anything like that, it would be just to restore everything back to the original. So no shape to the windows would change or size wise.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for applicant?
Yeah, on the front facade, do you think you could talk a little bit about the comparison of work between replacing the window and fixing the window? I think I'd like to have a little bit more clarity on that.
Well, the main thing is that the windows are not energy efficient. So by changing them out to a pane that is a dual pane with the argon gas in the center for insulation, that will allow her to have better control on the efficiency of the windows, the temperature that stays upstairs. It is a next second story window, or level, so it does tend to get hotter in the summertime if there's not that efficiency. So that's why we're looking more at replacing those windows, because there's not really any way to make them efficient and also make them operate correctly.
Any other questions for the applicant? And I will call for, is there anyone here representing the neighborhood association? If there's none, I will call for any other testimony, and I don't think we have anybody else signed up to speak. Do you have any additional questions of staff? I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Pons moves to approve as recommended and seconded by Commissioner Bergman. I will now take a vote.
There's any discussion.
Oh, do we have, sorry. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a point. Great. I have a few concerns just about the windows, especially on the front facade. It sounds like the main motivation behind changing those materials out is energy efficiency, and I just don't know if that meets the criteria B for historic materials. It seems like there may be a chance to preserve or repair the window rather than replacing it. So I'd like to maybe talk about that criteria a little bit before we approve.
Any other comments for Discussion?
Yes. Follow-up question with you is, so the material, they're replacing the materials in kind with like materials except for the window glass, if I'm correct. The wood's there, it's just the glass that's different. Is that the point?
I think that I would say that maybe isn't necessarily meeting this criteria here about historic materials being preserved and repaired rather than restored or replaced. Especially the glass, I feel like it's a historic feature that's hard to replicate.
Anybody else have anything to say? Do we want to have any more discussion or,
I want to mention that, I'm, you know, coming from living in an old house as well, the drafts, with the single pane windows, especially if they're cracked or anything like that, can make a world of difference for the longevity of the house as well. And I also, as for my one experience in purchasing homes, a lot of insurances won't cover your house if they have single pane windows, and that was actually something that I think of now when folks are trying to replace their windows is what's the potential that in the future, the next people that get to move into this historic home will actually be able to have the proper insurances and things in place to maintain it. So, now that we're just talking about windows, I'm just thinking of the long-term of this home. And I feel like the effects that are gonna come from replacing the windows, I don't see it as a limiting factor in the overall feel of the home.
Yeah, having owned an old home that has some old drafty windows, which looks similar to what has been presented, I think it's harder to consider repairing them the older that they get too. So at some point, you're gonna have to replace them from just a standard of like, longevity standpoint. And I guess I'm concur with you, that there's certain factors that still need to be considered for, the next future owner. So.
I have a question, maybe for staff, or maybe for the applicant, but is there any way to remove the windows and save them or donate them? Oh, sorry, okay. No, past question time.
If you want to make a decision
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to move to reopen the hearing.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion to reopen the hearing by Commissioner Kerdeman and seconded by Commissioner Strauss. So, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Also,
So I think Cheryl would like to have me express too, that that area especially gets cold during winter time because of the single pane. And I think your question about the storm windows would, like I said, would be difficult for her to install and take off. But I think an addition of a storm window on the outside is going to be more of a change to the look. Let's say replacing just the glass as we're proposing for that front facade. So from the street side, you really wouldn't see much of a difference between what's there and then the glass. It's just going to be more efficient if dual pane argon gas installation. Oh, sorry, as far as donation of the windows, the remaining windows out there, the other 6 that we're proposing to replace, I would imagine those could be pulled, as long as there's not an issue with when we pull those out, that they, for some reason, are glued in, or we wouldn't expect that, but those could potentially be pulled and then redonated if see that could be a problem. The front windows, where we're using the frames that are there, so the only thing that's changing is those two sashes, which do not operate. So, but we could do that too. So that if it was a help, then the two back windows, she could possibly do the same thing, is just have the sash done. But, those would be more expensive that way.
I have another question. Commissioner Strauss. This might be a good question for staff, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about criterion B and the historic materials when possible. Do you think that there is more evidence that the windows are impossible to repair?
Yeah, so one of the submittal requirements we have for any sort of window project is a submittal of a window condition assessment, which is something that previous Commissioner Joyce Sears, who's currently the restoration specialist, and she was on that Landmarks Commission, developed. But it's very subjective, I would say, right? There's certain criteria and the applicant did reference those criteria, and that is the condition of the glass, the condition of the wood frame, whether the ropes have been cut. It's what we call cumulative adverse effect, right? So it's not just one thing, it's many things. And then it's a cost benefit analysis. So in terms of how this, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Previous commission actually asked that I bring back the overall approach that the Landmarks Commission has had towards these kinds of window replacements at the time that we were reviewing the update of our code. And at that time, it was found that when 3 or 4 more of these conditions were present, the Landmarks Commission generally had the consensus that the best effort would be made. And when looking at this guideline B, it was really important to make to the commission at the time that phrase "when possible" was included, so that there was discretion and a reasonableness at the time. So.
Thank you, that does help, I appreciate it.
Do we have any more questions for either staff or? Then I will.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I have one more follow-up? So they did submit the window restoration or the window evaluation.
Condition assessment.
Yeah, for each window.
Yes, and
Okay, great.
yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't present.
Okay, cool. Are these pictures from that assessment? Is that what this is from? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Raymond?
Yes, I think we should make clear that this is a window in the front of this house, on the primary facade of the house, that this is a window sash replacement. And it's replacing a wood sashes with wood sashes with divided light, mutton bars, and the dual pane glass. So it's a other than going to the insulated glass or dual pane glass, it really is a an in-kind like kind of replacement. So I don't have a real problem or issue with that, but I appreciate that there is that staff and our guidelines are looking at a cumulative impact, because wood sash windows like these can last indefinitely if they're properly maintained. And if the exterior paint is kept on them and sash cords are periodically replaced, they will last virtually indefinitely. And there are other mitigations for that sensation of breezes and air infiltration. And what is actually happening is that if the windows in wintertime are not covered on the inside with blinds, drapes, shades, or something like that, that your body temperature is radiating toward the glass, which is a much colder temperature than your body temperature. So that's why there is that sensation. So there are ways to mitigate that feeling without having to replace the windows or window sashes. But I think in this case, looking at physically the condition of the window sashes and the window frame, and then you know, the painted condition, the sash boards having been cut, it becomes a much bigger project to restore windows when they've been neglected for several decades. So, I mean, I can see justification for this. And on the other windows for the house, the Marvin windows, those are also they're a hybrid type or style of window sash that is wood on the inside and clad with fiberglass on the outside. So it's, you know, I have issues with replacing wood windows with other materials, but in this case, it's still at its heart a wood window. So I can see some justifications.
More questions or comments? And I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion.
Still have.
Oh,
We have to open it.
oh, so we have to close.
Commissioner Watts, I think if we either could continue discussion on this motion, or if the discussion's done, then I think you can vote on it. So we can get a second, so.
Okay, so let's vote on motion by Commissioner Evans. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So now I will call for a motion to approve after discussion. Or what we've now just discussed.
I think we've already,
You just voted to approve.
yeah, I think it's already.
We're good. The motion was to approve and.
I think it was.
Now that we're voting to approve the case. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, apologies, it's very confused. Motion passes.
Okay.
We move on to action items. Okay. Do we have any action items? I do not see any. Discussion items. Work plan assignment updates. Our favorite. So, if you all recall, you weren't here, Jennifer. You all kindly volunteered to help with certain things, which I'm sure you totally remember. And I think that I think that Zach may have emailed you that list of your assignments. I think for the short term, I know that the photo contest group met, so perhaps that group can give an update about what you met about and what the photo contest is looking like this year, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I can give some update and Zach fill in the blanks, I'm sure, but it kind of felt like the way we did it last year with kind of a preliminary vote and then a discussion on the tops was really efficient, and using the voting, virtual voting to at least get the preliminary stuff through. We kind of talked about some of the categories, what was it, the youth category, or the selfie category didn't get many submittals, so kind of changing some of the category names to maybe make them not as specific and more encompassing. I know, let's see, I know we talked about trying to put the word out a little more at the schools and seeing about getting on some of the school announcements and things like that that go out. And then the prizes, we weren't really sure, not sure where we ended up on the prizes, but trying to obtain prizes for the recipients, for the award winners. And also we're also gonna keep the option to have no award if we feel like there isn't a good application for a certain category. So if the category is something with wildlife and all we get is pictures of bushes or something, it's like, well, there's not wildlife in there, so we can say, yeah, it's not, there's nothing to award here. Anything else, Zach?
The application is now live, so it's going right now through May 8th, I want to say is the deadline. We posted a news story on our website, and it's open. I shared it with Andy, who I think is going to put it on our social media if you hasn't already. But the new category that we changed, so it used to be we had a pet photo category and a selfie category. We've combined them into one category and expanded them, so it's now portraits and animal photos. So whether that be wildlife or a pet, it doesn't matter, or if it's a selfie or like a high school portrait in a historic location could work. So that's what we changed those categories to and combined them, and everything else is on. Oh, one thing that we discussed was that before COVID, we would have the contest open, and then you would vote in April and recognize the winners in May during a meeting. But we decided to extend the application period, so you won't vote on them until the May meeting, and we'll continue to recognize them by meeting with the applicant or the winner at their location and take a photo with them, giving them the certificate. So that's what we decided for this year. We may change that for next year, where we just move it earlier so you can still vote in April, but still have a long application time and recognize them with their photo at the May meeting. But that's what the committee decided for this year.
Outreach. I wasn't here, so I haven't been assigned to anything, so currently we have not.
Wait a minute, now to change.
And then let's move on to what are the other things, there's the education,
Right.
So I can kind of go through a short list of things that are coming up that I think you need assistance with, if that's okay.
that sounds great.
So April 1st, we're having our 5th annual Changing Festival, very exciting. And we need a few volunteers. It's a Saturday, and it's from 11 to 12:30 at the Pioneer Center. And we can follow with emails. I'm just throwing it out there. And the volunteers would just help guide folks with parking, walking to the back of the cemetery. We will have an opportunity there for you to actually put flowers on, trying to do, not done before, right? And we have had Andy in terms of outreach. We started this during COVID times. He was able to live stream on Facebook. I do not know how magically he did that, but he did that. I don't know if he's able to join us or if he can't, if anyone else has that technological.
I'm sure we can get.
You figure it
that
out.
happen.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to help with that too.
Yay. And then also in April, we are starting our public archaeology project. I'm staring at Jessica. And so we'll send out a flyer about that if you're interested in volunteering either regularly at the excavation, you're welcome to do that, but we really need extra help on Saturday, April 22nd. That is going to be our public archaeology day. And we're going to have, I don't know if you all went last year, but we had a big tent with tables and activities for kids and grown-ups. We just need help with that kind of thing.
And then,
Public outreach.
well, I was gonna ask about the junior archaeology day.
Right. Oh, yeah, I forgot. How did I forget that? Because it's the same day as Qingming. So there's a junior archaeology day on the same day as Qingming, April 1st. That's going to be over at the Willamette Andrews Center. So I've already asked for help on that day. But if you feel like you have a lot of energy and you want to do both, I know Kylie can do some. And that's just for kids. We're doing that a little different this year.
Can I ask, if there's a kid that might be interested, do they need to sign up ahead of time, or do they just show up? And
I don't know, we can follow up with Kylie.
Okay,
I think we want, she's putting together a press release about it, so.
It'd be something we also put on our social media pages.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said we could help with both, so they, I'm assuming that are in tangent.
Well,
the morning.
there is a bit of overlap, but the junior archaeology day is starting earlier and going later. And the Qingming is just right around lunchtime, so. It is feasible. To do. And then, I know that there's a committee also, I don't know if it's the same committee as the photo committee for Historic Preservation Month activities, general things. I just want to touch on the Criterion Schoolhouse workshop. I think I might have copied you on the email. So they're working to try and get a workshop with many opportunities. I always want to do a window workshop, especially after this discussion, but I'm not sure whether it's windows or siding, I can't remember. But we would need volunteers to help with that workshop. And we don't have a date yet. I just wanted to kind of put that on everyone's radar. They're going to actually be doing work in May and also in July. So if that's something that appeals to you, just let us know. We'll follow up with an email, but I'm not sure if we talked about it to that level of specificity.
Going back to public outreach too. Are you presenting in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. The Society for American Archaeology, is that the name? Their national conference is in Portland this year. And I'm presenting on Friday, March 31st on a panel with Doug Wilson and some other wonderful folks. It's being facilitated by David Harrelson from the Grand Ronde. And the topic is the intersection of heritage and memory. And I'm going to be talking about the Chinese shrine questions. Yeah, it promises to be a very cool conference. And they have like field trips and stuff. Yeah.
Is that gonna be digital at all or online?
I don't know.
At the last essays, they had like a kind of a hybrid, it's kind of up to the symposium presenters. Yeah, so I'm not too sure if it's gonna be like that again, and if it is, I think you might not know until you just show up. But yeah, that is a good point though, the SAAs, it's not, you do have to be a member and then register for the conference, so it's quite a bit. But I'm sure Kimberly can reach out to David Harrelson and ask if he would be interested in recording it. And if that's the case, you know, we can figure something out, I'm sure.
I'd be curious, but
Sounds interesting discussion.
I will be there, so maybe do a live in the back. Sit in the back of the shaky phone camera.
That's all I have on my short list for outreach and engagement and education.
See anything else?
Problem.
Well, we can move on to newsletter check-in.
I have a question about the local outreach. What about the cherry trees and the sakura blossom? Okay, is there going to be a festival again this year for that?
I saw something on Facebook that said there is something in the Capitol Mall.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there usually is, I don't know that we've ever really coordinated with them. But we could start, that's of interest.
Yeah, it's a real popular event, lots of people with cameras and young families and taking pictures of the Capitol building and the cherry trees. It's just a big place to show up somehow.
Do we know what year those trees were planted? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
It's looking yesterday, actually. Couldn't find it.
When the garage was built, because
Oh, okay.
underneath there is the parking garage, so I think it was.
I'd be curious if the tree, like the promenade, is 50 years old or not.
Do we want to move on to newsletter now? Is that great?
So we decided last meeting that the spring edition was going to be Parks and Gardens. And Commissioner Inman was potentially going to write an article about Lord Stryker. Commissioner Fuller was going to write about native landscapes. And Commissioner Strauss said she's going to look up about a pear tree. And I don't know if there's any development on that.
Not yet. What's my deadline?
Next week.
Okay. I'll get something to you by like
So if I
Monday.
if I could have them by Friday next week, and if anyone who hasn't signed up for something would like to sign up for something, that would be fantastic. And we did have a short discussion at our summer, generally the summer edition, we do articles about the submissions for the photo contest. So whatever the subject of the photo contest is, the commission will sign up to say, I'm gonna write about that one. But Commissioner Strauss suggested writing about the fair, as that's not an often talked about subject, but we got a lot of history in the fair. And the summertime is appropriate to do that. So, so if anyone has whatever the commission would like to do for the summer edition, we can discuss that now so that people can get set aside and not have a deadline next week.
Since for the fair, when does the summer issue come out?
The summer issue comes out in June, the last week of June.
Okay, so we'll have, photos from the workshop that we could possibly use in our summer article that's focused around the fair and everything. So school houses are.
There's two topics that I'm interested in particular, but I don't know if I could write two articles. But one is the chicken building, which I just think is great and it deserves recognition. The second is that the fairgrounds are the site of like a Bracero program in the Salem area, which I think would be a really great way to feature some, traditionally underrepresented history of the community. So I think that would be a good topic to do as well.
We did have an article on the Bracero program in general, probably like 2 or 3 years ago, but if you want to write something new or write.
Maybe you can just be short then.
Zach, I just wanted to tell you that the article, the second part 2 of Justice.
Do you think you could have that for the spring issue? Great, and I'll add that to the list. Does anyone else have articles that they're excited to write?
may want to do something with summer issue, what I would expect to do.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead.
I thought of one more thing that excited me. I remember there was this really interesting, like, I think it was associated with the Jason Lee Church down off of like Broadway over here. There was a church group that did, they had like this really famous booth for like 50 years and they were associated with that church. So I wonder if maybe that would be an interesting little feature too.
That sounds like we're gonna need the fair for sure. So, if Chris, you want to write 3 articles, or if anyone wants to sign up for one of Chris's suggestions.
I could do some like, I'll do some like cute snippets. That's what I'll do.
But if anyone else thinks of anything, we do have time for that one. It will be the last week of June. But articles for the spring newsletter, please get to me by the end of next week, and then we'll handle June when we get there. That's all I have for the newsletter, unless anyone has any questions.
If we don't, then we can adjourn this meeting.
Oh, no, wait, I have
Oh,
some.
no.
The agenda, historic conservation officer.
Oh. I just skipped over that.
I see that great
From 7B to 9.
I just want to share that, I want to share 2 things. So on Monday evening at City Council, we had our public hearing for local designation of the Civic Center, which if you all recall came to you guys in January, I think. And it was, they unanimously approved it and it's moved forward to second reading on the 27th. So very positive experience there and a lot of support. And I also wanted to share last week, on Thursday, I went with Mayor Boyd, our council vice president, Virginia, and our new city manager out to the Grand Ronde to, I'm going to mispronounce this, the Chachua Museum to help me. Yes. And T'Challa, thank you. And met with several of the Grand Ronde tribal counselors and some staff, and they got a tour of the museum and to do the exhibit out there. So also that was a very positive experience. And on Friday, I actually also went to the Sluts Reservation and met with Robert Kent and Peter Hatch and brought one of our interns from Willamette and talking with them about the student doing some additional research on obsidian, trying to source obsidian. So it's very interesting session. They have some obsidian out there that they don't know enough about, and Willamette has an XRF. Gotcha. And there's another gentleman, I can't remember his name, who's done a lot of work on obsidian sourcing. So
Yeah, Alex Myers.
Yep.
Yeah, he runs the obsidian sourcing lab.
in Court of Balance.
Where is the Blodgett, which is west of Corvallis.
Anyway,
But yeah, he's a great resource, and he took over for the obsidian hydration and sourcing labs that Greg Skinner had, so just a wealth of knowledge, but yeah. Good, okay, that's what I was gonna ask, I was gonna say, have you looked up with Myers yet? Okay, perfect.
Anyway, that's all.
Now we may adjourn.
That we may.